Sir, on time, yes, sir. Good, sir. Good, sir. Yes, sir. No, we can if you want, but we're here.
Ready?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 34th Annual Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale Leadership Award Ceremony. Allow me the opportunity to briefly talk about the Pentagon Hall of Heroes. This memorial is fittingly located to help ground each of us who work in the Pentagon in the meaning and sacrifices paid during times of war, in a place where patriotism and bravery can be recognized and recorded for all time. The Pentagon Hall of Heroes honors each and every Medal of Honor recipient. You will notice 3 versions of the Medal of Honor hanging on the walls here and in the next room: the Army version, the seagoing version for the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard, and the Air Force version. More than 3,100 names of Medal of Honor awardees line these walls. The Hall of Heroes was opened and dedicated by President Lyndon B. Johnson on May 14, 1968. If you are able, please take advantage of your time here to explore this exhibit. Today, we are humbled to present an award named for a Medal of Honor recipient. This unique fleet award was established in honor of Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale, whose distinguished naval career symbolized the highest standards of excellence in both personal example and leadership. The Vice Admiral Stockdale Leadership Award is presented annually to 2 commissioned officers, one each from the Atlantic and Pacific fleets, who are on active duty below the grade of captain and are in command of a single ship, submarine, aviation squadron, or operational warfare unit. Candidates are nominated by their peers, who are themselves must be eligible for the award, making this award even more prestigious. This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, Admiral Jonathan Greenert, the 30th Chief of Naval Operations. A graduate of the United States Naval Academy, Admiral Greenert has successfully commanded at all levels, including the USS Honolulu, where he earned the Vice Admiral Stockdale Award for Inspirational Leadership, Commander, Submarine Squadron 11, Commander, Naval Forces Marianas, Commander, U.S. 7th Fleet, and Commander, U.S. Fleet Forces Command. In his last tour, he served as Vice Chief of Naval Operations. We are privileged to have him here to speak with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Greenert.
Thank you, Krusty. The only thing missing is, and married to Darlene Greenert. How am I doing so far, honey? Vice Chief, thanks for joining us today. Michelle Howard here, and a lot of former awardees today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a big deal. What's such a big deal about it is the only award nominated by peers, somebody that you have to take the time and out of your very, very busy schedule in the most complicated, difficult, but rewarding job you've ever had, and say somebody else deserves to be awarded. I want to acknowledge that person. So in a time in our world, in our nation, of complexity, of things going on all around it, pick up the paper, you read, my gosh, another this, another that. how are we going to get through all this? We're going to get through all this with leadership. And today we're going to take a moment and acknowledge and recognize leadership. And I think that's noteworthy and proper. Darlene and I were in the Mideast last week, and we were out in the Arabian Gulf. We were on 5 ships, saw thousands of sailors. And I would tell you, in a time of uncertainty, where there is no uncertainty, are your folks on the front line, your sailors and Marines out there, actually, and soldiers and airmen and Coast Guardsmen. But we were out there with the sailors, and I thought you ought to know that. And what's getting it done out there is leadership. And that's how we'll get through these rough times with our nation, these challenging times out there in the world. As I said, a big award, and one that is done by a special board with some very, very discreet means of determining these awardees, laid down by Admiral Stockdale himself years ago. Again, peers who take the time to nominate them. And we should stop, and I think it's great that we are stopping here and acknowledging these folks. But as each of these young men, they're all young to me now, will say when they come up and talk, you know, didn't you remember when you commanding officers, you were at JO? I do remember that, say, oh man, I'll never get that old. And now I say, where do we get such young officers? Anyway, I digress. This is a family affair, and I love, coming in and seeing it's almost laid out symmetrically on either side, the Dickinson and the Duff family here. So Tom's son Zane is here, candidate, as we would say, a nominee for the Merchant Marine Academy. I let that roll out. That's perfectly fine, the Merchant Marine Academy. And as we like to say, as all awardees say, I'd like to thank my producers and directors. So Mom Lee, Dad Jerry, and director Sister Christy. We all who have a sister know who helps direct us. And of course, on the Duff family, wife Shannon is here. Now the kids, the Shannon family is, the Duff family is an interesting aspect. 2 girls, teens, put all that together, separation, 2 boys. And so you got all those that have raised children who are now young adults say that's an interesting household. They've had the brilliance to come to town and treat this kind of as a vacation. But with Shannon and Gavin here are Dad David, Mom Vicky, and Sister Amanda. So again, a very nice breakdown, and folks that kind of put you guys together now, didn't they? So. No one gets here alone, as I was mentioning. Careers and lives are filled with supporters. And so as I see sailors here and officers and Chief Petty Officers with the coveted visitor badge, then and if you work here, if you don't work here, you don't know what I'm talking about, but that's okay. I see that we have folks who have supported these 2 fellows to get this award. And careers and lives, as I said, are filled with family, obviously, friends, obviously, but also shipmates and classmates. So to you guys, the recipients, your role models are out here. As you're saying, your mentors, many of them are here today, and they've cared to invest the time in you, as you will talk to, and as you've already talked to Darlene and I this morning. And they've obviously done a good job. So congratulations for those of you out there. But now you're the role models, like it or not. And you will be and have been the mentors, and that's why you're here. And you'll pass that wisdom on to the next generation. Just a word about Admiral Stockdale. There can be many words about Admiral Stockdale. We name ships after Admiral Stockdale. We have chairs at our institutions of higher learning. We build our ethics program and our ethical thinking around Admiral Stockdale, and for good reason. He's an accomplished warrior and a scholar, and that's a very interesting and proper combination. He's a leader who excelled not only as a fighter pilot, but as a president of an institution, which brought that institution into a new era. He was a prisoner of war, 8.5 years, and persevered in pretty much unimaginable adversity, and brought it through and showed not only his peers, but those folks who served with him, if you will, in the Hanoi Hilton, how stoic philosopher, as he likes to call himself, deals with the trials and tribulations of life. Admiral Stockdale embodied integrity for sure, humility definitely, and he taught us a great deal. And today, when I talk to people in leadership positions, one of the hardest things for people to realize, as we're about to praise these gentlemen here today, this is a humble position. You are a servant of those that you serve, that serve under you. And Admiral Stockdale taught us about strength and, of course, resilience. The relentlessness of a model of ethical leadership that regardless of the conditions, you have to reflect and you have to embrace and you have to stand on your character. And he also showed us that it was a team effort, this business of command and these challenges, as he and his wife, Sybil, worked through the years. And, of course, they've written and talked about that together. On leadership, Admiral Stockdale wrote, and I quote, "Leadership must be based on goodwill. It means you must be obviously and wholeheartedly committed to helping followers." Simple words, easy to say, easy to repeat, hard to follow the way he did it. He earned the Medal of Honor, as we talked about, as Krusty mentioned today earlier. But even more importantly, he earned the respect and the trust of his fellow prisoners of war and all those up and down his chain of command. Tremendous impact in the Navy and beyond, and an accomplished academic and writer. So this award is about excellence in command, and these two gentlemen did exactly that. Tom and Gavin were proven leaders and chosen by their peers, as I've mentioned again and again. They've excelled in the face of adversity in their own right. And as I mentioned before, this complex world we're in, where we send folks out in command to do things that I wasn't asked to do in command, and frankly, it's been sort of unprecedented, the things that we ask our folks in command to do, 05 Command, to do in the world today, and in the midst of extended deployments. They inspired their sailors, they remained focused, and they kept their units mission ready in the case of a lot of distractions and in the face of a lot of distractions. Tom was at sea in the Eastern Mediterranean, ready to strike in case it was Syria, while providing a protective umbrella for Israel and for Eastern Europe, and he had his ship, the Barry, mission ready. Gavin flew with his units over the skies of Afghanistan and performed excellent in that regard. But neither takes credit for the achievements. If you talk to them and as you listen to them, you'll see that both point to their shipmates, they point to their mentors, and as all of these awardees have done, they say, it's not really me, it's the folks that I worked with. Like their Command Master Chief, Jones, and their Command Senior Enlisted Leader, Senior Chief Donham, that each of these respectively mention. Commander Foster, one XO, Commander Locke, another XO. And it says volumes for what these guys are like, the fact that they acknowledge them and turn to them. So today we'll take a moment and we'll acknowledge these young men. We'll define them as two leaders achieved in a remarkable success in command. And they epitomize what Vice Admiral Stockdale stood for, and that's the integrity and the humility of command. Thank you very much for joining us here today, and let's get on with the award.
Military members are invited to stand for the award presentation. Admiral Grainer will now present the Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale Leadership Award to Commander Dickinson. Commander Dickinson will be joined on stage by his son, Zane Dickinson. Zane, please join your father on stage.
All right, Commander Thomas Dickinson, on behalf of the United States Navy, I'm proud to present you the Admiral Stockdale Award for inspirational leadership. Congratulations. Thank you.
Admiral Grainer will now present the Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale Leadership Award to Commander Duff. Commander Duff will be joined on stage by his wife, Shannon Duff. Mrs. Duff, please join your husband on stage.
On behalf of the United States Navy, Commander Gavin Duff, I'm honored to present to you the James Bond Stockdale Award. Congratulations.
Please be seated. Earlier today, the award recipients also received copies of the book authored by Vice Admiral Stockdale and his wife, Mrs. Sybil Stockdale, titled In Love and War, The Story of a Family's Ordeal and Sacrifice During the Vietnam Years. Ladies and gentlemen, the Atlantic Fleet Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale Leadership Award recipient, Commander Thomas Dickinson.
Good morning. Admiral Greener, thank you very much for your gracious hospitality today. And I'd also like to thank Lieutenant Bierman for putting this ceremony together. She did a lot of hard work. Admirals, distinguished guests, friends, shipmates, family, I am so thankful that you are here today. When I look at this audience, I see so many people that I care deeply for in one place. It's really special to me. So thank you for being here today. I'd like to offer Gavin congratulations on a job well done, especially for class of 95. Very honored to spend this day with you and proud to be your classmate. To be associated with the Stockdale name is a tremendous honor. Admiral Stockdale has been a hero of mine since I was a 17-year-old plebe at the Naval Academy. And at that time, it was difficult for me to wrap my brain around 7.5 years as a prisoner. I was almost half of my life at that time. And now when I reflect, I'm 40 years old. Admiral Stockdale was 41 when he was shot down over North Vietnam. Imagine now spending the next 7.5 years of my life in prison and then serving after that in and out of uniform. It's a tremendous legacy, and it's tremendously humbling to be associated with his name. As Admiral Greenert mentioned, this is particularly special because the award is nominated by a shipmate, by a fellow commanding officer. And I was blessed last year when I was deployed to the Eastern Med to be with the best COs in our fleet. 4 of them are here today. Commander Kevin Kennedy, CO of USS Gravely, Commander Dave Stoner, CO of USS Ramage, Commander Bob Alpagini, CO of USS Stout, and Commander Chris Fallon, CO of USS Simpson. We relied on each other every day. We had each other's back, and the camaraderie that we experienced was unlike anything else I've experienced in my career, and I'll always cherish that. I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by great people my entire career. Starting with my sponsor family at the Naval Academy, who's here today, through every step of my career, whether it was a ship or a shore station. Great leaders, great mentors, great shipmates, great sailors. My first ship was Chancellorsville, a very special ship to me, and my first XO is still my mentor today, Admiral Jim Shannon. I have 4 former commanding officers here today. Captain Select Kevin Byrne, who was my CO in Barry when I was XO, Captain Dan Keller, and Admiral Dickinson Smith, who were my COs on the Sullivans. What a great ship that was. Captain Johnny Walker, who is my CO on the Minesweeper Champion. I have 2 former Commodores in the audience. Captain John Esposito, who was my Commodore in the Mediterranean last year under Admiral Pandolf. It's great to see you today, sir. And Captain John Fuller, who was my Commodore back in Norfolk. What all of these leaders had in common was they invested a tremendous amount of time and trust in me. They allowed me to make mistakes, to learn, and to lead in my own way. And maybe even more importantly, they showed me how to enjoy the job and enjoy the profession. And I really do love what I do. So I'm forever in your debt. The real stars of the show here are the sailors of Barry, though. This is their award today. It's not mine. And I'm lucky enough to have 10 of Barry's best here in the audience. Some of them newly advanced, and just great to see you here today. What a privilege it was to be your commanding officer. I had an unfair advantage as a commanding officer, too, because my XO and CMC were the best in the fleet. Commander Foster, who's now CO of Barry, and Command Master Chief Chuck Jones. You were phenomenal and brothers for life. But these sailors, they didn't know they didn't know what quit meant. Time and time again, they would take a challenge and turn it on its head into a success. I just couldn't believe how much teamwork I saw, how much belief in what they did, always having each other's back. I will always respect that, and you'll always be my heroes. So thank you for what you did. My family's closest to me. So I'll end with this because it could get emotional. My mom and dad, they've given me love and support from day one since I've been born throughout my entire career. They raised me in a Christian home that was not easy. They taught me that the minimum standard wasn't good enough, which absolutely helped me in life from the beginning to now. But they provided the love and support that I needed in my life to be successful. And I love you and thank you so much for that. My sister and my brother have always been there for me also, whether it's tough times or just experiencing the joys of life together. And I love you. My children are the loves of my life. Zane Connornelli, and Zane's here today with me. Everything that I do is for you. And Zane receiving his nomination from the Merchant Marine Academy was so great last week. And to spend this day with you is simply awesome. So I love you all. I wouldn't be here without you. So in closing, I'm so thankful to have such a great group of people that love and support me. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to lead as a commanding officer in the Navy, and I look forward to getting after it in the future. Go Navy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Pacific Fleet Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale Leadership Award recipient, Commander Gavin Duff.
Good morning, and thank you, Admiral and Mrs. Greener, for hosting us this morning. Shannon and I had a wonderful time, and it's simply awe-inspiring as this entire day has become. And I'm not sure that there's any use in me giving a speech because I don't know whether it's because we're both from the class of 95 or we're similar personalities, but essentially, as Tom read his speech, mine says virtually the same exact thing. We're just going to insert a couple different names, and I promise we did not even talk to each other about the speeches beforehand, but I will go for it anyway. To say that I'm humbled to be standing here today is probably the understatement of my life, in a room that's surrounded by the heroes that have stood before us and all that they have achieved in their service to this nation is enough. This room is just simply amazing, awe-inspiring, and humbling to be standing, let alone to be standing on the podium as the recipient of the Admiral Stockdale Leadership Award. Like Tom, from the day I entered the academy, I think it was something that was indoctrinated into you as from your detailer or your complete summer company commander. You went there and you learned from his room and the room that's dedicated to him all that he contributed to the Navy, and you are just in awe of what he has done and what he did. And the definition of leadership, I don't think I truly understood what leadership meant at that point in my career, and throughout the next 19 years I've learned much more about what his tenets of leadership actually mean and how they apply in achieving the most out of a command, out of your sailors, and out of the overall mission. And through that, in conjunction with mentoring and observation of leaders that have been astounding, I have learned so much, and the Navy has given me so much. In the next few minutes, I'm going to thank a few people by name. But before I do, like Tom, it's important for me that you know that this award has nothing to do with me. I would often feel like I sat in my office or sat in the ready room on the carrier doing nothing, and the rest of the command ran without me. I'd provide a little bit of guidance here and there, and they achieved the excellence on their own. The sailors, much like the Barry sailors, it sounded like, simply strived for excellence and achieved it on a daily basis. They needed little leadership. But there have been thousands of sailors I've had the opportunity to work with throughout my career. 220 of them, sailors, chiefs, and officers in VFA 14, were incredibly impactful. And each day of my command tour, they strive for a new level of excellence in their area of expertise while accepting the responsibility that the triad, myself, my XO, and my command senior chief, gave them to lead, whether that leadership was of the sailor that was immediately junior to them or whether that was their entire department of 150 people. This award, I truly believe, reflects their excellence much more than my own. And throughout my career, I've served with the best the strike fighter community and naval aviation have to offer, each of whom have had a dramatic impact on my leadership development and my philosophy. My first operational CO, Admiral Greg Nozel, began my education as a JO, showing me an absolute trust in myself and each of us who stood in the ready room. while demonstrating my first glimpse of what servant leadership truly meant and showing me a CO who balanced the growth of his sailors with the command's mission. Captain Axel Foley showed me the absolute necessity for a squadron commanding officer who was tactically relevant. Commander John Pags Paganelli, who was my XO at VX-23, demonstrated clearly the meaning of taking care of sailors with the most sincere desire to grow them professionally and personally that I have ever seen. Captain Greg Hi-Fi Harris, who was my CO when I was a department head, perhaps more than others, taught me to be a CO while I served as his department head. In the years that followed, he has proven to be an invaluable source of advice, leadership, and a source of opportunities I would have not otherwise had. For those who seek to learn how to make a sailor, chief, or officer excel, I urge you to look to Commander Scott Mongo Janik. I served with him at the Bureau, and he had an infectious way of making every single person he came in contact with feel like the most important person he had met that day, and I have strived since then to follow his example. Chief of Staff Snapper Bull and CAG George Wyckoff allowed me more responsibility and insight into the role of a commanding officer than ever before while I served as their XO at the Fleet Replacement Squadron on the West Coast. They showed me the absolute criticality of the role of a CO as a teacher, letting the sailors know their limits, letting them expand upon their responsibilities, and showing their initiative to achieve absolutely remarkable things each and every day beyond what I could ever imagine. And then you just get to watch the excellence that comes as a result of that. Throughout the last 20 years, I've served with some amazing chiefs. 3 stand out as highlighting the role of an officer as a moralist and a jurist. Master Chiefs Rick Schoaf, Eric Smith, and Jim Cahill. When you talk about the ideal chief, you are speaking of them. The chair in their office was cold and their email accounts were full during the day. But they knew everything that was going on about the lives of every one of the sailors in their command. And through our years together, they taught me the absolute criticality of the role of the relationship between an officer and a chief, and the role of the relationship between a chief and his or her sailor. Aside from my family, there are 2 men who should really be standing here today with me receiving this award. The CNO has already mentioned them. Commander Gimp Locke and Senior Chief Glenn Donham. Gimp stands alone in a category of excellence as a tactician, leader, friend, and mentor. While he would see it differently, our success, the Top Hatter's success, is because of his sage counsel through countless hours of discussion, an ability to instill confidence in sailors second to none, and a genuine concern for each and every person he leads. Senior Donham, my acting CMC, is an amazing leader. I suspect I'm not alone in this room for those wearing uniform, but 4 of my favorite words in command were, "I've got it, Skipper." And that is what I heard from Senior every day. Not a blind compliance, but he truly understood the mission and the vision that we had set out, and he executed it each and every day. When a young sailor learns the phrase, "Ask the chief," they are learning Senior's example. To my parents, David and Vicky, I thank you for laying my foundation of faith, commitment to hard work, humility, and service. To my sister, who is a picture of strength as she manages her family and raises her 2 wonderful boys. To my aunt and uncle, I thank you for your unending support throughout my career. Uncle Ed will be happy the next Tiger cruise. My room will probably not be quite as cold, and the accommodations might be slightly better. To my children, who are probably having the time of their life with their babysitter right now, getting into more trouble than I wish to know about, I'm incredibly proud of them and thankful to them for their resilience, love, and support. Moving in the middle of the year as a teenage girl is not the easiest thing to do, but my girls have handled it flawlessly. I know my profession on them is not easy, and yet through it all, they continue to adapt and excel and be extremely autonomous. Shannon, you have been my greatest cheerleader since the beginning. Getting emotional like Tom. I stand here today because of you. You have been unwavering in your support for 19 years. From our first days together, where you were helping me study for immediate action exams and the T-34, through all the moves, deployments, and to our current path of learning more about neutrons than I ever knew existed, you have been my rock, guiding and leading our family and friends through it all. I love you. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you and the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. We welcome you to come forward to greet and congratulate the award recipients and their family members, and join us in the back for light refreshments. Thank you for attending.
You're thinking, didn't we already do this one? We had them in the office.